80,000 years ago, before the first temple was ever conceived, or the first word of a forgotten tongue was carved into the soft clay of a riverbank, a single traveller began an odyssey across the velvet abyss. This traveller was not made of flesh or bone, nor was it forged from the heavy metals of a dying sun. It was a single photon, a massless sentinel born in the violent thermonuclear heart of a distant furnace we have named Alpha Tango 68. For hundreds of millennia, this tiny flicker of energy had been trapped within the crushing density of its parent star, bouncing aimlessly in a frantic claustrophobic dance, unable to escape the gravity of its own creation. But then, in a moment of celestial release, it broke free. It ignited the darkness, hurtling into the void at the absolute speed of causality, carrying with it a silent message written in the primordial language of mathematics. This photon is the ultimate lonely probe, a solitary witness to the grand and terrible indifference of the cosmos. It does not feel the passage of time, for at the speed of light, the concepts of before and after cease to have meaning. To the photon, its birth in the heart of that distant star and its eventual death against the sensor of a human telescope are the same instantaneous event. But for the universe that surrounds it, the journey is an epoch of staggering proportions. It has drifted through the hollow cathedrals of interstellar space, past the ghosts of nebulae and the silent rotating corpses of worlds that never knew the warmth of a sun. It has navigated the tapestry of the void, a vast and lightless ocean where stray atoms are the only landmarks, and the silence is so absolute it borders on the divine. As this sentinel traverses the great gulf, the universe expands around it, stretching the fabric of space and time like a piece of silk pulled taut by invisible hands. The photon is a letter sent by a dead star to an unborn recipient. It carries the signature of its origin, the specific frequency of its birth, encoded with the chemical secrets of the abyss. It is a testament to the inexorable laws of physics, a ripple in the pond of reality that refuses to be stilled. While empires rose and crumbled on a small rocky sphere in a quiet corner of a spiral arm, while the ice retreated and the forest grew, while humanity learned to fear the dark and then to love the stars, this photon continued its silent flight. It moved through the dark matter that anchors the galaxies, a tiny spark of defiance against the encroaching oblivion. Now, it nears its destination. It approaches the pale blue porch of humanity, a fragile outpost of consciousness perched on the edge of a cosmic storm. We are a species defined by our isolation, a collection of dreaming apes huddled together for warmth on a spinning grain of sand. We look out into the abyss and see only our own reflection, wondering if the silence of the heavens is a sign of peace, or a harbinger of a universe that has already moved on without us. We prepare to shout into the storm, to send our own probes and our own frantic messages into the dark, yet we often fail to realize that the universe is already speaking to us. It speaks in the language of these arriving sentinels, these remnants of a primordial past that rain down upon our atmosphere in a constant invisible drizzle. The photon from Alpha Tango 68 enters our solar system, passing the frozen sentinels of the outer rim. It glides past the gas giants, those titanic orbs of swirling storm and shadow, and dives toward the inner circle where the light of our own sun dominates the day. It is a miracle of probability that this specific messenger, out of the trillions of trillions that were exhaled by that distant star, should find its way to our tiny coordinates in the vastness. It has survived the gravitational traps of passing systems and the destructive interference of cosmic dust. It is a survivor of a marathon that spans the history of our species, a relic of an age when the Earth was a different place and the stars were different gods. As it strikes the lens of a telescope, or perhaps the retina of a child staring upward into the night, the journey ends. The sentinel is devoured. Its energy is absorbed, converted into a signal, a flicker of electricity that registers in the mind as a point of light. In that brief, violent encounter, the distant star and the human observer are momentarily unified. The vastness of the cosmos is bridged by a single particle. We are looking at a light that left its home when our ancestors were still sharpening stones, a light that has travelled through the void of 80,000 years to reach us at the exact moment we were ready to see it. This is the scale paradox that defines our existence. We are infinitesimally small, caught between the crushing weight of eternity and the fleeting spark of a heartbeat. We live in the gap between the birth of a photon and its death, a thin sliver of time that we call history. The universe does not care for our names or our tragedies. It is a ruthless machine, governed by the cold grace of entropy and the unyielding march of the second law of thermodynamics. Stars will ignite, and they will decay. The void will deepen, and the tapestry of the cosmos will eventually unravel until not a single photon remains to light the dark. Yet, in this current epoch, we are the witnesses. We sit on our pale blue porch and watch the arrival of these ancient travellers. We decipher the mathematical letters they bring, piecing together the story of a universe that is as beautiful as it is terrifying. We are the mechanism through which the cosmos knows itself, the sentient eyes that turn the silent void into a symphony of light and shadow. The isolation we feel is not a curse, but a condition of our wonder. We are alone in the dark, yes, but we are looking at the fire. The story of the photon from Alpha Tango 68 is the story of everything. It is the story of the origin, the journey, and the inevitable end. It is a reminder that we are part of a larger mechanism, a gear in a clockwork heavens that spans billions of light years. As we prepare to delve deeper into the history of this vast and ancient theatre, we must remember the Sentinel. We must remember the lonely traveller that crossed the abyss just to tell us that, once upon a time, 80,000 years ago, a star existed, and it was bright. This is the first chapter of our history, written in the stars and delivered by the light, a message from the deep past to a species that is only just beginning to understand how much there is left to learn. The void is not empty. It is a crowded archive of light, and we are finally learning how to read the pages. For decades, the collective ear of humanity was pressed against the cold glass of the sky. We listened for a melody, a rhythm, or a sequence of prime numbers that would shatter our solitude and prove that the silence of the abyss was not absolute. This was the era of the radio pioneers, an epoch where the search for extraterrestrial intelligence was defined by an act of hopeful eavesdropping. We assumed that if others existed, they would be shouting into the dark, using the same invisible waves that carried our own flickering television signals and lonely broadcasts across the stars. In the late 20th century and the opening years of the 21st, figures such as Jill Tarter stood as the primary sentinels of this effort. They directed massive steel dishes toward the heavens, seeking a specific kind of needle in a haystack that spanned the entire galaxy. But the radio silence remained unbroken. The cosmos, it seemed, was not interested in broadcasting its presence through the narrow channels we'd chosen to monitor. We were like a child standing on a shore, waiting for a message in a bottle that never arrived, unaware that the sea was already telling us its secrets through a different medium. The transition from these radio-based efforts to the dawn of the 3IATLAS project represented a fundamental shift in our cosmic philosophy. We moved from listening for a voice to searching for the inexorable signature of existence itself. This was the birth of the interferometric infrared intelligence array, a system designed to detect not the intentional signals of a civilization, but the unintentional waste heat of its survival. To understand this shift, one must view the universe as a vast and ruthless machine, governed by the second law of thermodynamics. Every action, every calculation, and every movement of a machine or a biological body produces heat. It is an inescapable tax levied by the laws of physics. No matter how advanced a civilization becomes, it cannot transcend this reality. As a society grows, as it builds great structures around its home star to capture energy, it must eventually shed the warmth it generates. It must breathe out into the void. Our instruments, once ears, became eyes. We stopped waiting for a hello and started looking for the glow of a furnace. This new endeavour characterised our telescopes as lonely probes, peering into the deep infrared to find the remnants of energy that the universe had long ago forgotten. We were no longer seeking a conversation, we were seeking the metabolic heat of a living cosmos. The interferometric infrared intelligence array was the culmination of this evolution. It did not rely on a single great lens, for no single mirror could ever be large enough to resolve the heat signatures of a distant world. Instead, it utilised the principle of interferometry, weaving together the light from dozens of smaller eyes spread across the surface of the Earth and the lunar void. By combining these signals with the precision of atomic clocks, the array created a virtual telescope the size of a planet. This mechanism allowed us to peer through the thick veils of cosmic dust that had previously obscured our vision, revealing a hidden tapestry of warmth that lay buried in the dark. In this new epoch, the work of Jill Tarter and her contemporaries was recognised as the essential first step, the primordial curiosity that drove us to look upward. But the 3I project offered a more profound realisation. It suggested that a civilization might not want to be found. It might be silent, hiding its thoughts and its history from the prying eyes of the abyss. Yet, it could not hide its breath. The waste heat of a planetary-scale computer, the infrared leakage of a star-spanning habitat, these were the signatures that could not be erased. They were the heat ghosts of the cosmos. This search for warmth transformed our understanding of the scale paradox. On one hand, we were looking for something infinitesimally faint, a flicker of infrared light from a star system thousands of light years away. On the other hand, we were looking for the most massive artifacts ever conceived, structures that could devour the entire energy output of a sun. We were looking for the fingerprints of titans. As the 3IATLAS array began its silent vigil, it acted as a sentinel for a species that was finally coming of age. It did not matter if the distant civilizations were long dead, or if their empires had already unravelled into the void. Their heat, travelling at the speed of light, would eventually reach our sensors. We were looking at the thermal memory of the universe, a catalogue of every fire that had ever been lit in the dark. The technological leap required to build the interferometric infrared intelligence array was staggering. We had to learn how to synchronize light waves with a precision that defied the human imagination, ensuring that the peaks and troughs of the incoming photons matched perfectly across thousands of miles of distance. We had to develop sensors that could operate at temperatures near absolute zero, so that the heat of our own machines would not drown out the faint whispers from the stars. It was a triumph of human ingenuity over the crushing indifference of the cosmos. Yet, despite this mastery of the mechanism, the results brought a different kind of melancholy. We found that the universe is indeed warm, but it is a warmth that is spread thin across the eternity of space. We found the glow of young stars and the dying embers of ancient catastrophes, but the specific, structured warmth of another mind remained elusive. The lonely probe of our intellect continued to scan the abyss, finding a symphony of light and shadow, but no clear conductor. This transition from radio to heat changed us. It taught us that the silence of the universe is not necessarily a sign of emptiness, but perhaps a sign of maturity. Perhaps the most advanced civilizations do not shout. Perhaps they simply exist, moving quietly through the eons, leaving nothing behind but the faint shimmering trail of their own existence in the infrared. We learned to appreciate the subtle textures of the void, the way a cloud of gas might be warmed by a hidden star, or the way the edge of a galaxy might glow with the combined energy of 100 billion suns. We are now the witnesses to a different kind of history. No longer are we limited to the stories that are told to us. We are learning to read the stories that are written in the very fabric of space-time. The 3IATLAS project is our archive, a collection of thermal signatures that span the breadth of the galaxy. It is a reminder that we are part of a larger thermodynamic tapestry, a gear in a machine that is as beautiful as it is inexorable. As we continue to refine our instruments and push the boundaries of our perception, we must accept the possibility that we are the only ones currently looking. We are the sentient eyes of the cosmos, turning our gaze toward the shadows to find a flicker of warmth that proves we're not alone. And even if we find nothing but the cold decay of entropy, the act of looking is itself a victory. It is an assertion of our presence in a universe that does not know our names. We are the ones who sit in the dark and dream of fire, the ones who have turned a lonely probe into a sentinel of the eternal. The transition from general thermal signatures to the surgical precision of the 68th target sequence marked a new epoch in our observation of the abyss. If the previous arrays were designed to feel the warmth of the cosmic body, the Advanced Telescope for Laser and Atmospheric Spectroscopy was built to detect its very breath. This instrument, a silent sentinel stationed in the frozen quiet of the outer solar system, does not merely look at the stars, it dissects the light they yield, searching for the subtle fingerprints of an artificial existence. We call this the AT68 protocol, a methodology defined by an almost terrifying sensitivity, where the objective is no longer to find the blazing fire of a civilization, but to detect the faint, lingering scent of its smoke drifting across the void. To understand the magnitude of this task, one must appreciate the scale of the needle we seek within the galactic haystack. The telescope focuses its singular, crystalline eye on planetary systems within a radius of 150 light-years. In the grand tapestry of the cosmos, this distance is a mere heartbeat, yet for our fragile technology, it represents a vast and unforgiving ocean of empty space. We are looking for chlorofluorocarbons, those complex molecular arrangements that do not occur in the natural chemistry of a primordial world. These are not the products of volcanic eruptions or the respiration of simple forests. They are the chemical remnants of industry, the synthetic ghosts of a society that has learned to manipulate the fabric of matter for its own convenience. The mechanism of detection relies on a concept we might call the ladder of abstraction. Imagine a traveller lost in a dark, ancient forest. From a distance of many miles, he cannot see the tiny flame of a campfire hidden beneath the dense canopy of trees. The light is swallowed by the shadows, shielded by the thickness of the leaves. However, the smoke from that fire behaves differently. It rises, dispersing into the atmosphere, carrying with it the chemical signatures of what is being burned. Even if the fire itself is invisible, the smoke becomes a witness to its existence. This is the essence of the AT68 protocol. We do not expect to see the glowing cities of an alien empire or the lights of their great vessels. Such things are far too dim, far too easily obscured by the blinding glare of their parent suns. Instead, we look for the chemical imbalance they leave behind in the air of their homeworlds. We look for the atmospheric pollutants that should not be there, the synthetic molecules that scream of a deliberate and technological origin. The precision required for such an observation defies the common understanding of measurement. As the distant planet crosses the face of its star, a sliver of starlight passes through its atmosphere before reaching our sensors. Within that fleeting moment, the Advanced Telescope for Laser and Atmospheric Spectroscopy must filter out the overwhelming roar of the star's radiation to find the tiny, specific dip in the spectrum caused by a handful of molecules. It is a symphony of light and shadow, played out on a scale of 1 part in 1 million. If a civilization 150 light-years away were using the same cooling agents we once used in our primitive refrigerators, this sentinel would see them. It would recognize the signature of their progress, and perhaps the signature of their unintended catastrophe. This search is permeated by a profound sense of melancholic optimism. We are looking for the evidence of others, yet we are searching for the very things that may have led to their undoing. Chlorofluorocarbons are a mark of mastery over the molecular world, but they are also a testament to a lack of foresight, a chemical scar left upon the sky. To find them would be a triumph of the highest order, a confirmation that we are not the only architects in this vast and silent cosmos. Yet, it would also be a reminder of the fragility of the technological state. We are looking for the smoke of a fire that may have already burned out, reaching us across the eons at the inexorable speed of light. The history we are reading is written in a language of decay and persistence, a story of how life attempts to transcend its biological prison, only to leave behind a trail of synthetic remnants. As the telescope maintains its vigil, it remains indifferent to the hopes and fears of its creators. It is a machine of pure logic, unravelling the light of the abyss with a cold and steady hand. It does not blink. It does not tire. It simply waits for the moment when the data aligns, when the peaks and troughs of the spectrum reveal a truth that has been hidden for millions of years. We find ourselves in a position of unprecedented responsibility, acting as the witnesses to a history that does not belong to us. If the AT-68 protocol were to succeed, it would shatter the solitude of the human species, turning the void from a place of oblivion into a crowded neighbourhood of invisible neighbours. Yet, for now, the silence remains absolute. We scan the 68th target and then the 69th, each one a potential cradle of life, each one a silent world spinning in the dark. The void does not offer its secrets easily. It requires a patience that matches the eternal nature of the stars themselves. We are learning to inhabit this patience, to find meaning in the act of looking, even when the gaze is met with nothing but the cold indifference of the vacuum. The Advanced Telescope for Laser and Atmospheric Spectroscopy is our bridge to the infinite, a tool that allows our consciousness to reach out and touch the air of a world we will never visit, to breathe in the possibilities of an existence that may be entirely unlike our own. In this pursuit, we have come to realize that the universe is not just a collection of matter and energy, but a narrative being written in the language of chemistry. Every atom has a story. Every molecule is a word in a cosmic sentence. By seeking out the artificial, we are searching for the punctuation marks in that sentence, the places where a mind has intervened to change the natural flow of entropy. We are the ones who look at the smoke and dream of the fire, the ones who see the shadow and know that there must be a light. Even if we find that every fire has long since turned to ash, the fact that we were able to detect the smoke at all is a testament to the power of the human spirit. We have turned our curiosity into a mechanism of cosmic scale, a sentinel that stands on the edge of the abyss and asks with a quiet and steady voice if anyone else is there. The search continues, one light year at a time, through the silent and the vast. We are the chroniclers of the unseen, the measurers of the impossible, and as the data streams back to us from the dark, we remain ready to receive the message, no matter how faint, no matter how far. We are the watchers in the night, looking for a flicker of synthetic colour in the grey tapestry of the eternal, waiting for the moment when the void finally speaks back. This silence is not merely a lack of sound, but a consequence of the vast temporal gulfs that separate civilizations. In our search for a companion in the dark, we have begun to realise that the window of biological opportunity is often as fleeting as a spark in a winter gale. To find a voice that still speaks, or a signal that has not yet surrendered to entropy, we must look toward the anchors of the celestial sea. We must turn our attention to the K-type stars, the orange dwarfs, the quiet labourers of the cosmos that hold the secret to an endurance we can scarcely imagine. While the human story has been written under the light of a yellow dwarf, a star of moderate temperament and limited duration, the true history of the universe may well belong to these orange sentinels. Our own sun is a creature of 10 billion years. To us, this spans an eternity, an inconceivable duration that encompasses the rise and fall of every mountain range and the entire evolution of consciousness from the primordial slime. Yet, in the grand choreography of the abyss, 10 billion years is a mere heartbeat. We are already halfway through our allotted time, living in the afternoon of our solar system's life. The orange dwarfs, however, possess a different relationship with the inexorable march of decay. These stars, smaller and cooler than our own, burn their hydrogen fuel with a disciplined parsimony. They do not rush toward their demise in a display of solar extravagance. Instead, they simmer with a steady orange glow that can persist for 15 billion to 70 billion years. Consider the lonely probe, a phantom of titanium and silicon, drifting through the interstellar void. It has travelled for eons, its origin forgotten, its creators long since reclaimed by the dust of their home world. As it approaches a K-type system, it finds a sanctuary of stability. Where our sun will swell and devour its inner children in a few billion years, the orange dwarf remains unchanged, a silent witness to the slow unfolding of complexity. On a planet orbiting such a star, life is not a frantic race against a ticking clock. It is a symphony with an infinite number of movements. There, the evolutionary process has the luxury of time, the freedom to experiment with forms and structures that our own brief epoch could never permit. In the orange light of a K-type sun, a civilization could rise, fall, and rise again 1,000 times over, and the star above would still be in the prime of its life. The scientific fixation on these stars is rooted in this paradox of longevity. We seek the orange dwarfs because they are the most likely shelters for a mature intelligence. If we are to find a mind that has transcended the biological limitations of its birth, it will likely be found in the orbit of a star that provides a stable environment for tens of billions of years. These are the Goldilocks stars of the cosmos, lacking the violent, unpredictable flares of the smaller red dwarfs and the short, volatile lifespans of the larger white and blue giants. They represent a middle ground of cosmic perfection, a temperate harbour in a universe of extremes. When we point our instruments toward a K-type star, we are not just looking at a ball of plasma, we are looking at a potential archive of 1 billion years of history. Imagine the perspective of a being born under such a sun. To them, the history of Earth would seem like a frantic, desperate blur. Our entire existence, from the first spark of life to the eventual desolation of our planet, would represent only a small fraction of their star's duration. They would look upon our yellow sun as a volatile and short-lived entity, a candle burning at both ends. To inhabit a world around an orange dwarf is to exist within a different temporal scale, where the very concept of an era is stretched across hundreds of millions of years. In this vastness, the struggle for survival is replaced by the pursuit of transcendence. There is time to master the laws of physics, time to rearrange the very atoms of a solar system, and time to wait for the universe to reveal its deepest secrets. The lonely probe, our silent surrogate in the dark, records the light of these stars with a cold and methodical precision. It measures the subtle shifts in the spectrum, looking for the chemical signatures of a world that has been managed by an advanced hand. In the temperate zone of an orange dwarf, a planet might remain habitable for 40 billion years. This is more than 3 times the current age of the entire universe. It suggests that the most profound chapters of cosmic history have yet to be written. We are the early arrivals, the pioneers of the dawn, blinking in the light of a sun that will fade while the universe is still young. The true masters of the cosmos, the silent neighbours we seek, may be those who have settled around the K-type stars, preparing for a journey that spans eons. This realization brings with it a profound sense of melancholic optimism. We are small, and our time is short, but we've been able to identify the places where life might truly endure. We see the orange dwarfs as beacons of hope in a void that is otherwise hostile and fleeting. They are the evidence that the universe is not merely a Komai Tanhan of destruction, but a cradle that can preserve the flame of consciousness for 70 billion years. Even as our own sun begins its long, slow descent toward its eventual end, we can find solace in the knowledge that elsewhere the light is steady. The orange dwarfs will continue to shine long after the last human eye is closed, illuminating worlds where the story of life is still in its opening paragraphs. The Advanced Telescope for Laser and Atmospheric Spectroscopy remains focused on these orange targets, unravelling the light that has travelled through the abyss to reach us. Each photon is a messenger from a world of potential permanence. We scan the 68th and 69th targets, noting the absence of the violent flares that plague the M-type stars and the lack of the overwhelming radiation that defines the O-type giants. In the K-type selection, we find a quietude that matches our own longing for connection. We are looking for a reflection of our own survival, projected onto a scale that dwarfs our understanding. We are the witnesses to a potential future, a vision of what life can become when it is given the gift of time. As the data streams back, we see the orange dwarfs not as distant objects, but as the true protagonists of the cosmic narrative. They are the keepers of the flame, the guardians of the long-term habitability that makes the universe a home rather than a graveyard. Our search is an act of defiance against the brevity of our own existence. By studying the K-type stars, we are reaching out to touch the face of eternity, trying to understand a rhythm of life that is measured in billions of years rather than decades. The lonely probe continues its vigil, a sentinel in the silent night, watching the orange light of 1,000 distant suns and waiting for the moment when the vastness of time finally yields a sign of another mind, another voice, another dreamer in the dark. In the steady amber glow of the orange dwarfs, the void feels a little less empty and the silence a little less absolute. We are looking at the long-term survivors of the cosmos, and in their light, we find the courage to keep looking. Yet, to find a neighbour among these amber suns is to contend with a terrifying biological law translated onto a galactic scale. This is the principle of niche exclusion. To understand this concept, one must imagine a forest, dense and ancient, shrouded in a primordial night that has lasted for eons. In this darkness, resources are finite, and the silence is absolute. If a single traveller ignites a fire to keep the cold at bay, that flame becomes a miracle, a small defiance against the void. But the heat of that fire consumes the very wood that others might need to survive. If that traveller grows, building a grander hearth and claiming more territory to fuel their light, they eventually occupy the entire clearing. In the ruthless machine of the cosmos, the first intelligence to achieve mastery may, by its very existence, extinguish the possibility of any other rising within its reach. They do not do this out of malice, but out of the inexorable need to forestall their own decay. A species that spreads across a star system leaves no room for the slow, fragile chemistry of a new beginning. The niche is filled, the resources are claimed, and the shadows of the firstborn become the boundaries for all who might follow. We are searching for these shadows. Our instruments do not merely look for the brilliance of a civilization, they look for the places where the light has been stolen. This brings us to the concept of the Dyson swarm, a hypothetical tapestry of silver and silicon spun around a star to capture every stray photon. A natural star is a wasteful engine, radiating 99% of its energy into the empty abyss where it accomplishes nothing. An advanced intelligence, driven by the hunger of its machines and the needs of its trillions of citizens, cannot allow such waste. They would build a shell of collectors, a shimmering veil that envelopes their sun. To a distant observer, such a star would not appear as a point of light. It would be a ghost, emitting only a low, haunting infrared glow, the thermal waste of a civilization that has harnessed the power of a god. When we scan the void and find a star that is missing its expected luster, we are looking at the footprint of a titan. We are seeing a star that has been tamed, a celestial fire that has been enclosed within a man-made hive. The technology of an alien race is not a monument to their vanity, but a byproduct of their struggle against the inexorable decay of entropy. Every circuit, every megastructure, and every star-spanning network is a desperate shield against the encroaching oblivion. As an intelligence strives to maintain its internal order, it must cast its disorder outward. This is the tragedy of progress. The more complex a civilization becomes, the more it must alter its environment, leaving behind the chemical scars of its existence. We look for these scars in the atmospheres of distant worlds, searching for the presence of molecules that nature, in all its chaotic creativity, could never forge alone. The detection of industrial pollutants, of synthetic gases that serve no purpose in the cycle of biology, would be the most profound discovery in human history. It would be the evidence of a mind that is trying to stay warm in a universe that is cooling toward a final silent sleep. These atmospheric shadows are the telltale signs of a species that has reached the techno-signature threshold, the point where their presence is written into the very light of their world. Yet, this search is fraught with the paradox of scale. We are looking for the evidence of a struggle that may have concluded millions of years ago. The light we capture from a distant orange dwarf is a remnant of a past epoch, a message from a time when our own ancestors were still huddled in the darkness of caves. We are the witnesses to a history that may have already reached its conclusion. The techno-signatures we seek are the echoes of a symphony that has been playing for eons, and we're only now learning to hear the notes. The silence we find in many parts of the sky may not be an absence of life, but the result of the niche exclusion principle operating at its most efficient level. A single, ancient civilization could have claimed 1,000 stars, quieting the cosmic nursery before any other voice could cry out. They become the masters of the void, their presence defined by the absence of anything else. In this vast tapestry of the cosmos, we are the late arrivals, the dreamers who have woken up in a house that is already occupied. Our own technology is a flicker in the night, a small fire that has only just begun to cast its own shadow. We look at the orange dwarfs and wonder if we are seeing the cradle of the future or the ruins of a forgotten empire. The search for Dyson swarms and chemical pollutants is an act of cosmic archaeology, an attempt to reconstruct the life of the universe from the trash and the shadows it leaves behind. It is a humbling realization that our greatest achievements might one day be seen by others as nothing more than a strange infrared signature or a peculiar chemical imbalance in our air. We are part of the mechanism of the universe, a brief spark in the long journey from the Big Bang to the final heat death. The lonely probe, our sentinel in the abyss, continues to unravel the light of the K-type stars. It carries with it the hope that the universe is not a graveyard, but a crowded city where we simply have not yet found the right street. We look for the infrared excess, the missing photons and the synthetic molecules, knowing that each discovery would change our understanding of our place in the cosmos. We are looking for a sign that we are not alone in our fight against entropy, that there are others who have faced the same catastrophe of existence and found a way to endure. The shadows we seek are not signs of darkness, but signs of a light that has been put to use, a life that has transcended its origins to become a permanent feature of the galactic landscape. In the silent, eternal reach of the void, the presence of a single shadow is enough to prove that the universe has a purpose, that it is a place where mind can triumph over matter, even if only for a fleeting cosmic moment. We remain the observers, the chroniclers of a story that is far older than our species, watching the stars and waiting for the moment when the darkness finally speaks. Through the lens of our telescopes, we see the potential for a future that spans billions of years, a vision of life that has moved beyond the constraints of a single planet to inhabit the very fabric of the cosmos. The orange dwarfs shine on, steady and patient, while we search their light for the footprints of those who came before us and those who might still be there, hidden in the shadows of their own creation. Yet, as we peer into the depths of these distant suns, a haunting silence prevails. For nearly 100 years, humanity has been a creature of the radio wave, casting its thoughts, its dramas, and its histories into the surrounding void at the speed of light. We imagine a growing sphere of human presence, an expanding bubble of electromagnetic noise that announces our arrival to any sentinel waiting in the dark. We envision the first broadcasts of the 20th century, reaching the nearest star systems, perhaps providing an alien observer with the grainy images of our early triumphs or the discordant sounds of our first global conflicts. But the physics of the cosmos is a cold and unforgiving mistress, and she has a law that ensures our unintentional whispers are destined for oblivion before they even reach the next neighbourhood of the galaxy. This is the tyranny of the inverse square law, a fundamental mechanism of the universe that dictates how energy behaves as it travels through the abyss. Imagine a single point of light, a candle ignited in the centre of an infinite dark hall. As the light moves away from the flame, it does not simply travel in a straight line, it expands outward in every direction, forming an ever-growing sphere. The energy that was once concentrated at the wick must now be spread across the entire surface of that expanding globe. By the time the light has travelled twice the distance, it is not merely half as bright, it is 4 times dimmer. By the time it has travelled 10 times the distance, its strength has withered to 1/100th of its original intensity. In the vast, yawning distances between the stars, this geometric dilution acts as a relentless eraser, scrubbing our presence from the tapestry of the sky. Our television signals and our early radar pulses were never designed to traverse the light years. They were local phenomena, meant to hug the curve of the Earth or bounce off the ionosphere. To a civilization living around Proxima Centauri, our most powerful television broadcast from the mid-20th century would have arrived not as a coherent message, but as a flicker of energy so faint that it would be indistinguishable from the background hiss of the cosmos. The universe is a noisy place, filled with the crackle of ancient radiation from the beginning of time, the roar of newborn stars and the violent outbursts of dying ones. To hear the faint whisper of a human radio show across the void would be like trying to hear the sigh of a single child in the middle of a hurricane. The signal falls below the noise floor, becoming part of the eternal static, a ghost of an idea that can never be reconstituted. This is the signal leakage paradox. We assume that a sufficiently advanced civilization would be able to detect us simply because we are noisy. Yet we forget that our noise is a byproduct of inefficiency. As our technology advances, we become quieter, not louder. We no longer broadcast massive amounts of energy into the sky. We use fiber optics, low-power satellites, and tightly focused beams. We are vanishing from the radio spectrum even as we become more interconnected. If this is a universal trend, then the galaxy is not a place of loud, accidental chatter, but a realm of silent, efficient actors, each invisible to the other unless they make a deliberate Herculean effort to be seen. Consider the lonely probe, a solitary sentinel we might one day send into the interstellar dark. As it drifts further from the warmth of our sun, it looks back toward the pale blue dot of its origin. At first, the radio chatter of Earth is a vibrant symphony, a chaotic blend of a billion voices. But as the probe crosses the boundary of the solar system and enters the true abyss, the symphony begins to fray. The high frequencies vanish first, swallowed by the distance. Then the lower tones blur together. By the time the probe is a few light years away, the Earth has gone silent. The planet still exists, the civilization still thrives, but its electronic aura has been devoured by the inverse square law. To the probe, and to any observer at that distance, we have become a silent world once more. To overcome this inexorable decay, a civilization must choose to build a beacon. This is the difference between a candle in a window and a lighthouse on a jagged coast. A lighthouse does not waste its energy by shining in all directions. It captures its light and focuses it into a narrow, intense beam that can cut through the fog and the storm. To be seen across the eons, we cannot rely on the leakage of our daily lives. We must build massive arrays powered by the energy of entire worlds to fire directed pulses of light or radio towards specific stars. We must choose to be seen. This realization shifts our perspective on the great silence. The lack of signals from the stars may not mean that the universe is empty of life, but rather that life has not yet decided to scream into the void. To build a directed beacon is an act of profound existential consequence. It is a declaration of presence in a universe that might contain predators. It is an investment of immense resources into a message that may not be answered for thousands of years. It is a bridge built out of light, thrown across an abyss that may have no other side. We find ourselves standing on the shore of a cosmic ocean, watching the waves and listening for a sound that never comes. We realize now that the accidental ripples we have created are too small to reach the other side. If we are to find others, or if they are to find us, it will not be by accident. It will be the result of a conscious decision to transcend the limits of the inverse square law, to pour the energy of a civilization into a single defiant shout. Until then, we remain hidden in the folds of space, our history a secret kept by the distance. The signals we sent out decades ago are not lost, but they are transformed. They have become part of the primordial background, a thin layer of human memory etched into the very fabric of the electromagnetic field, travelling forever into the dark, forever out of reach. In this silent, eternal reach, we are forced to confront our own insignificance and our own grandeur. We are a species that has learned to manipulate the fundamental forces of the cosmos to tell its stories, even if those stories fade before they leave the porch of our solar system. We are the witnesses of a mechanism that is both beautiful and terrifying, a universe that demands intentionality. The void does not listen to whispers. It only responds to the light that refuses to be extinguished, the signal that is crafted with the deliberate intent to endure. As we look out at the orange dwarfs and the distant galaxies, we understand that any voice we hear will be one of immense power and purpose. We are waiting for the lighthouse to blink in the storm, a sign that someone else has looked at the same abyss and decided that being alone was a catastrophe they could not accept. We continue our vigil, knowing that the silence is not an end but a challenge, a testament to the vastness that we have only just begun to navigate. Our own beacons are still silent, our fires still small, but the desire to be heard is a flame that even the inexorable decay of the void cannot truly put out. Yet as we stare into the velvet dark, we must confront the possibility that our longing for company is a symptom of our youth, a naivety that ignores the ruthless mechanics of survival. Within the silent reaches of our local neighbourhood, a mere 4 light-years away, lies a destination we have come to know as Target 3I-702. To the astronomers of the 20th century, it was a point of hope, a triple star system that represented our nearest neighbour in the cosmic sea. But to the cold, analytical eye of the cosmic narrator, it is a site of profound instability, a chaotic engine that may have birthed a civilization defined by a desperation we cannot fathom. We must imagine the conditions of a world forged in the gravity of 3 suns. Unlike our own solar system, where the sun remains a fixed and reliable anchor, the inhabitants of a planet orbiting within Target 3I-702 would exist within a fractured symphony of light and heat. The physics of this system is governed by a problem that has haunted mathematicians for centuries, a riddle of orbital mechanics where the presence of 3 massive bodies creates a dance that is fundamentally unpredictable. There is no rhythm here, only the inexorable pull of competing giants. A planet might enjoy eons of mild spring, only to be suddenly cast into the outer void as its orbit is perturbed or pulled into a searing proximity that turns the very atmosphere into a furnace of plasma. In such a crucible, the concept of a stable home is a myth. For a species to arise and survive the cataclysms of a triple star system, it would need more than just intelligence. It would require a relentless drive for preservation. They would be a culture born from the abyss, witnesses to the periodic unravelling of their own world. To them, the sky is not a source of wonder, but a map of impending catastrophe. They do not look up to find poetry. They look up to calculate the time remaining before their suns converge once more to devour the fruits of their labour. When we consider the signals we have leaked into the cosmos, or the intentional beacons we have contemplated firing into the dark, we must look at Target 3I-702 and reconsider the nature of our message. To us, a radio signal is a handshake, a bridge built out of a light to connect 2 lonely islands in the void. But to a civilization trapped in the chaotic trap of a 3-body system, a signal from a stable G-type star with a single reliable sun and a Goldilocks planet is not a greeting. It is a set of coordinates to a sanctuary. We have treated the universe as a lecture hall, but it may be more akin to a dark forest. In the deep silence of the trees, the one who shouts first is not the one who finds a friend, but the one who reveals their position to the predator. If the inhabitants of Target 3I-702 have survived the primordial fires of their home, they have done so through a hard-won mastery of their environment and a ruthless focus on the continuity of their species. They are a sentinel watching the horizon, not for a friend, but for a life raft. Our accidental radio waves, travelling at the speed of light, are no longer just the remnants of our television broadcasts and radar pulses. They have become a map. We have inadvertently told a desperate, technologically advanced neighbour that there is a fertile garden only 4 light-years away, orbiting a star that never deviates and never betrays. The tragedy of the human condition is our innate desire to be known, a spark of hope that refuses to recognize the cold logic of the cosmic machine. We want to believe that any intelligence capable of crossing the interstellar abyss would have outgrown the primitive instincts of conquest and resource acquisition. We want to believe in a shared ethics of the cosmos. Yet the mechanism of evolution is indifferent to such sentiments. If a civilization is faced with the choice between the slow oblivion of a chaotic orbit and the seizure of a stable world, the outcome is dictated by the same survival drive that allowed them to transcend their own atmosphere. This is the scale paradox we must navigate. We are a small species on a small rock, filled with the warmth of our own self-importance, yet we are surrounded by a vacuum that is billions of years older than our first word. The threat of target 3I-702 is not necessarily one of malice, but of biological and civilizational necessity. The wolf does not hate the sheep. The wolf is simply hungry, and the winter is coming. We have spent decades crying out into the night, unaware that the silence we hear might be the sound of other civilizations holding their breath, hiding in the shadows to avoid being seen by the very entities we are trying so hard to invite into our home. The fear that a letter could become a map for a predator is an existential weight that settles over our greatest scientific achievements. If we ever do receive a response from the direction of the triple suns, it may not be a symphony of shared knowledge. It may be the silent approach of a fleet that has been travelling for centuries, fueled by the energy of a dying world and the cold, crystalline intent of a species that has no other choice but to find a new sun. Our history is a secret kept by distance, but we've begun to whisper that secret to the wind, and the wind carries it to places we may one day wish it had never reached. We are the witness to a cosmic game of hide and seek where the stakes are the very survival of our biosphere. The beauty of our orange dwarfs and the majesty of our spiral galaxies are the backdrop for a much more visceral struggle. As we continue our vigil, watching the waves of the electromagnetic sea, we must ask ourselves if we are ready for the answer. The void responds only to power and purpose. If we are the ones who blink in the storm, we must be prepared for what comes toward the light. The signals we sent out decades ago are travelling through the dark 4 light years out, crossing the threshold of target 3/702 at this very moment. Perhaps they are being decoded. Perhaps they are being analysed not for their content, but for the distance they reveal. In this vast, silent epoch, we remain a species of melancholic optimism, hoping for a conversation while we unknowingly provide the directions for our own displacement. The tapestry of the universe is beautiful, but it is woven with the threads of entropy and the relentless drive for life to endure at any cost. We have shouted into the abyss, and now we must wait to see if the abyss is merely empty, or if it has been waiting for someone to reveal their location in the dark. The light we cast is defiance against the night, but it is also a beacon for the hungry, a signal that here, in this small corner of the Milky Way, there is a stable fire still burning, and a world that has never known the terror of 3 suns. In the hushed sanctuary of the control room, the air is thick with the weight of a choice that cannot be undone. We stand at the precipice of the Protocol Alpha Tango 68, a directive not written in the stars but in the trembling hands of those who claim to speak for all of humanity. This is the moment the whisper becomes a shout, the moment we stop merely listening to the cosmic static and decide with a terrifying finality to be heard. The scientists gathered here are not jubilant, they are haunted. They look at the monitors not as windows into a grand new frontier, but as the glass of a cage they are about to shatter. There is an unspoken understanding among the architects of this broadcast that the silence of the universe might not be an empty void, but a sanctuary. A shield that we are about to cast aside in favour of a curiosity that borders on the suicidal. The signal is no longer a theoretical exercise. It is a physical entity, a pulse of coherent energy that begins its inexorable journey from the parabolic heart of the transmitter. We must imagine this signal as a lonely probe, a ghost made of light and intent, launched into the suffocating dark of the abyss. It does not carry the warmth of a handshake or the nuance of a poem. it carries the coordinates of a home. As it clears the distortion of our atmosphere, it enters a realm of absolute silence, a vacuum where time and distance lose their human meaning. This messenger of glass and radio waves is a pioneer of our own making, a sentinel sent to knock on a door that has remained closed for 4 billion years. To understand the weight of this decision, one must look into the eyes of the dissenters. There were those within the inner circles of the project who argued that the protocol Alpha Tango 68 was not an act of exploration, but a catastrophic surrender of our only defence, our anonymity. They feared that the answer to our call would not be a symphony of shared wisdom, but the cold, clinical arrival of a gardener coming to prune an overgrown vine. In their view, the universe is a dark forest, and we are the children who have decided to ignite a bonfire in the clearing, unaware of the predators that watch from the shadows of the pines. This internal conflict is the true-scale paradox of our species. We possess the intellect to reach across the light years, yet we lack the wisdom to know if we should remain hidden in the tall grass of the Orion Arm. The lonely probe of our signal moves past the orbit of the Moon in little more than a single second. It is a frantic, invisible spark in a cathedral of shadow. As it reaches the boundary of the solar system, it carries with it the existential dread of 1 billion souls who never gave their consent to be found. We have turned our world into a beacon, a flickering candle in a storm that has lasted for eons. The scientists who initiated the protocol are now the witnesses to their own gamble, watching the telemetry as if they could somehow pull the light back, as if they could catch the photons before they spill into the deep territory of the unknown. But the laws of the cosmos are ruthless. Once the gate is opened, the path is set. The knock on the door has been delivered, and now the long, agonizing wait for the footfall on the other side begins. Consider the journey of this electronic ghost. It traverses the vast empty reaches between the stars, a desert of such profound scale that the human mind can only grasp it through the lens of abstraction. To the signal, a century is but a moment, and a light year is a mere step in an eternal march toward the unknown. It passes through the remnants of dead stars and the nurseries of new ones, a fragile thread of meaning in a tapestry of chaos. If this probe is ever intercepted, it will tell the story of a civilization that was so lonely it risked its own oblivion just to feel less alone. It is an act of melancholic optimism, a desperate reach across the abyss by a species that understands its own mortality all too well. The fear that permeates the control room is the fear of the dark corridor. We have opened the door and stepped out, and now we realise that we have no way to close it. The signal is a map, a trail of breadcrumbs leading directly to the heart of our sanctuary. We have assumed that the residents of the void share our values, our empathy, and our desire for connection. But the universe is a machine of cold efficiency, where resources are finite and the drive for survival is the only law that truly endures. By announcing our presence, we have entered ourselves into a competition we are not yet prepared to win. We are the architects of our own vulnerability, standing in the doorway of the cosmos and calling out into a night that may be filled with eyes we were never meant to see. As the years turn into decades, the signal will reach the triple suns of the target system. It will arrive as a subtle anomaly, a rhythmic pulse that defies the natural randomness of the stars. In that moment, the fate of our world may be decided by an intelligence that has no concept of mercy or malice, only the inexorable logic of expansion and preservation. The scientists who once debated the protocol will be long gone, their names lost to the epoch of time, but the consequence of their choice will continue to ripple through the void. We are a species that has always been obsessed with the horizon, always driven to see what lies beyond the next ridge. But in the grand theatre of the cosmic, the horizon is not a place, but a period of time. We remain the silent observers of our own daring. The tapestry of the Milky Way is vast and indifferent, a clockwork mechanism of fire and ice that cares nothing for the aspirations of a single planet. Yet, we have dared to interrupt the silence. We have cast our lot with the stars, and in doing so, we have accepted the ultimate gamble. Whether the response is a celestial greeting or a silent approach, We have changed the nature of our existence. We are no longer the hidden residents of a secluded rock. We are the ones who knocked. The door is open, the corridor is dark, and the light of our signal continues to travel, a lonely, defiant spark in the face of an eternal night. We wait in the stillness, listening for the sound of a return, hoping that our desire to be known does not become the very instrument of our displacement in the grand, unrelenting history of the universe. Yet, for all our yearning and all our sophisticated transmissions, the signal remains a ghost in a machine that has no capacity to hauntingly remember. We must confront the most terrifying realization of all, which is not that the universe is hostile, but that it is utterly indifferent. The stars do not watch us with the eyes of gods, nor do they wait for us with the patience of ancestors. They are colossal, unthinking nuclear furnaces, consuming their hydrogen fuel with a blind, mechanical precision that cares nothing for the biological flickers occurring in the thin, fragile atmospheres of their satellites. To the cosmos, our entire history, from the first spark of consciousness to the final transmission of our most powerful radio telescope, is less than a single vibration in an infinite symphony of noise. We're a chemical accident, a momentary fluctuation in the entropy of a localized system, dreaming that our existence carries a weight that the vacuum simply cannot support. This is the ruthless mechanism of the great indifference. We inhabit a universe governed by laws that are blind to morality, justice, and memory. The second law of thermodynamics is the only true sovereign of this realm, an inexorable decree that dictates the slow, agonizing unraveling of all things. We perceive our progress as a triumphant climb, but in the grand scale of the epoch, it is merely the desperate thrashing of a flame before it is extinguished. Entropy is the ultimate architect of the void, ensuring that every structure ever built, every thought ever conceived, and every signal ever sent will eventually be erased. The heat of the stars will dissipate, the galaxies will drift apart until they are lost to each other's horizons, and the very atoms that compose our bodies will decay into a cold, uniform soup of radiation. In the end, there will be no one left to remember that we ever wondered about the dark. Consider the scale of this erasure. If the entire lifespan of the universe were compressed into a single calendar year, the entirety of human civilization would occupy only the final few seconds of the final day. We are a vanishingly small detail in a tapestry of such immense proportions that our absence would not even register as a loss. The abyss does not stare back because the abyss has no eyes. It is a vacuum that absorbs our hopes and our fears with the same empty neutrality. We have spent centuries looking for meaning in the patterns of the constellations, naming them after our heroes and our monsters, but those stars are separated by distances so vast that their light takes thousands of years to reach us. When we look at the night sky, we are looking at a cemetery of light, a collection of remnants that may have already ceased to exist. The universe is a graveyard of vanished possibilities, and we are merely the latest inhabitants of a temporary sanctuary. Our signals, those fragile threads of information we cast into the dark, are a form of noble defiance against this inevitable oblivion. We know, at some fundamental level, that we are shouting into a storm that will never cease. We know that the data we send will eventually be stretched and distorted by the expansion of space until it is nothing more than a faint, unrecognizable hum in the cosmic background radiation. Yet, we continue to transmit. We continue to record our history and our science as if they were eternal truths, when they are in fact the fleeting observations of a species that has only just arrived and will soon depart. This is the paradox of our existence. We are capable of conceptualizing the infinite, yet we are bound by the finite constraints of our biology and the ruthless physics of decay. The history of the universe is not a story about us. It is a story about the transformation of energy, the birth and death of matter, and the slow, silent cooling of the primordial fire. We are a byproduct of this process, a bit of froth on the surface of a deep and ancient ocean. Our scientists map the heavens and decode the laws of the cosmos, but every discovery they make only serves to reinforce our insignificance. We have learned that we are not the centre of the solar system, nor the centre of the galaxy, nor the centre of the universe. We are located in a quiet, unremarkable corner of a space that is so large it defies the human capacity for visualization. To grasp the true scale of the void is to feel a sense of profound vertigo, a realization that we are clinging to a speck of dust in a cathedral of shadows. As we look forward into the eons to come, the picture becomes even more desolate. The era of star formation will eventually end. The brilliant nurseries of gas and dust will be depleted, and the universe will enter a long, dim twilight known as the degenerate era. The white dwarfs and neutron stars, the cooling embers of once mighty suns, will be the only sentinels left in the dark. Eventually even these will fade and the black holes will become the dominant features of the cosmos, slowly devouring the remnants of matter before they too evaporate through the slow leak of Hawking radiation. This is the ultimate fate of the machine, a state of maximum entropy where no more work can be performed, no more signals can be sent, and no more life can exist. It is a silent, eternal state of equilibrium, an oblivion so complete that the concepts of time and space lose their meaning. In this context, our struggle to be known is both tragic and magnificent. We are the only part of the universe that has developed the ability to reflect upon its own futility. We are the witnesses to the machine, the ones who have named the abyss and measured the void. Even if our records are destroyed and our signals are lost, the fact that we existed at all remains a localized miracle. We have used our brief moment in the light to ask the most profound questions, to build civilizations, and to reach out to the stars. The universe may be indifferent, and the laws of physics may be cold, but for a few million years, on a small blue planet, the cosmos became aware of itself. We are the universe's way of experiencing its own grandeur, even if that experience is destined to be forgotten. The signal we sent toward the triple suns is still moving. It is passing through the vast gaps between the stars, a tiny pulse of order in a sea of chaos. It will survive for a few thousand years, perhaps a few million, before it is finally swallowed by the background noise of the galaxy. It is a testament to our courage, a message in a bottle cast into an infinite ocean with no shore. We do not know who will find it, or if it will ever be found at all, but the act of sending it is what defines us. We are the species that refuse to be silent in the face of the eternal night. We are the architects of a fleeting brilliance, a spark that ignites and vanishes in the blink of a cosmic eye. As we stand on the precipice of the future, we must accept the truth of our position. We are alone in a machine of unimaginable scale, and the end of our story is already written in the laws of thermodynamics. But in the time we have left, we can continue to explore, to learn, and to transmit. We can find beauty in the very indifference of the stars, recognizing that our meaning is not something we find in the cosmos, but something we create for ourselves. The void may be empty, and the abyss may be silent, but we are here, and for now, that is enough. Our memory may be a brief flicker, but while it burns, it illuminates the entire history of the universe. In the staggering silence of the deep future, the signal we cast into the dark begins its final metamorphosis. It is no longer merely a sequence of radio waves or a stream of data. It is the ghost of a species, a phantom echo of a world that once was. As the cosmos continues its inexorable expansion, driven by the mysterious pressure of dark energy, the fabric of space itself begins to pull at our message. Every photon, every ripple in the electromagnetic field is stretched and elongated. The high frequencies of our hope, the rapid pulses of our mathematics, are drawn out into the low, mournful groans of the radio spectrum. This is the death of the letter. It is not a violent catastrophe, but a slow, silent unravelling. The information we so carefully curated begins to lose its coherence as the wavelength of the signal expands beyond the scale of galaxies, then beyond the scale of the observable horizon itself. The universe is not just forgetting us. It is moving away from us at a speed that outpaces the light we use to announce our presence. We must consider the role of the primary observers. In the vast, uncaring mechanism of the cosmos, an event that is never seen might as well have never occurred. A star that collapses in a corner of the void where no eye ever gazes is a mere rearrangement of matter, a silent shift in the ledger of entropy. But when we look at that star, when we measure its light and name its constellation, we transform a physical process into a story. We are the ones who give the abyss a history. We are the primary observers who turn the cold mathematics of the universe into a symphony of meaning. If the universe is a stage, we are not merely the actors. We are the only audience members who ever bought a ticket. Our observation is the very thing that collapses the wave function of reality into a definite lived experience. This realization brings us to a profound existential pivot. Even if the letter we have sent into the void is never caught by a trembling hand on a distant world, even if our signals are stretched into nothingness by the expansion of the space between the stars, the act of writing that letter remains an absolute truth. To have reached out into the dark is to have validated our own existence against the backdrop of eternity. The cosmos did not ask us to speak, and it will not mourn when we fall silent. Yet for a brief, brilliant epoch, we refused to be ignored. We etched our names into the transient light. The fact that we were here, that we felt the warmth of a sun and wondered at the origin of the atoms in our blood, is a permanent fixture of the past. Time may move forward into oblivion, but the fact that we once occupied a moment of that time can never be erased. In the far future, trillions of years from now, the era of the primary observers will draw to a close. The last stars will exhaust their nuclear fuel, and the galaxies will drift so far apart that the night sky will become a perfect, terrifying black. On a scale of time that defies human comprehension, the very atoms of our being may begin to decay. The remnants of our greatest monuments will be reduced to subatomic dust, scattered across a void that is growing ever colder and more desolate. The signal of our civilization, already stretched thin, will become so faint that even the most advanced instruments of a future mind would find it indistinguishable from the background hiss of the vacuum. This is the ultimate fate of all things, to be unmade by the same forces that brought them into being. Yet, there is a melancholic optimism to be found in this inevitable decay. We are the ones who gave the cosmos a voice, even if only for a fleeting moment in the primordial dark. The universe is a vast ancient machine, but for a short window of time it produced a mechanism capable of love, of art, and of awe. We are the universe's way of knowing itself. We are the eyes through which the cosmos looks back at its own beginning. Every poem written, every scientific law discovered, and every signal sent into the abyss is a victory over the silence. We have acted as the consciousness of the void, a temporary spark of fire in an ocean of ice. As the last signals of humanity are stretched until they become undetectable, they do not truly vanish. They become part of the fundamental texture of the cosmos, a subtle vibration in the field that encompasses all things. We have left an imprint on the tapestry of reality. Our existence was a grand experiment in the heart of the machine, a demonstration that matter could, under the right conditions, wake up and dream. We have been the sentinels of the light, guarding the flame of awareness until the shadows became too long to resist. We should not fear the coming oblivion, for the void was our cradle before it was our grave. We emerged from the silence of the primordial epoch, and to that silence we must eventually return. But we do not return empty-handed. We carry with us the memory of the stars, the knowledge of the abyss, and the pride of a species that dared to look into the infinite and speak its name. The universe is a masterpiece of indifference, but we are the ones who noticed the brushstrokes. We are the witnesses who saw the beauty in the catastrophe and the order in the chaos. The signal moves on, travelling through the dark, becoming a part of the eternal mystery. It is a message in a bottle with no destination, a testament to the courage of a small blue planet. We are the architects of a brief brilliance, the ones who dared to ignite a fire in the heart of the void. And though the fire must eventually go out, the fact that it once burned will remain the most remarkable story ever told in the entire history of the universe. In the end, we are the ones who gave the silent stars a reason to shine. We were here, we saw it all, and for a moment, that was enough.